Rain hammered the roof of the wooden cabin like the sky was trying to break it apart. Thick sheets of water blurred the view outside, turning the forest into a storm-washed shadowland. Inside, Jalen sat alone, cradling a chipped mug of tea in both hands. The cabin groaned slightly under the weight of wind. Branches scratched at the windows, like claws dragging across glass. Jalen lived out here by choice. No traffic, no neighbors, just peace. Usually, he found comfort in the silence. But tonight, something felt off. The kind of unease that didn't come from thunder or flickering lights. He stood slowly, set his mug down, and went to double-check the lock on the door. It was already latched, but he tested it anyway. Just in case. He moved through the shadows, turning off the last lamp before heading to the bedroom. Lightning flashed, lighting the walls in a moment of ghostly white. Then he heard it. A sound. Not the storm. Something soft, a mix between a hum and a sob. He froze mid-step. Was that crying? He turned toward the window, tugging the curtain aside. Rain lashed the glass, but there was no one out there. No movement, no lights, just storm-drenched trees and darkness. Then, he turned. And stopped breathing. Someone, no, something, was in his bed. A figure, small and curled under his blanket, glowing faintly like moonlight reflecting off water. Jalen's heart pounded. A woman. Pale skin that shimmered silver blue, like she had just stepped out of the rain. Long wet hair clung to her back and shoulders. She lay still, trembling. Jalen stood frozen, mind racing. He hadn't heard the door. He hadn't heard a thing. And now there she was, like she had appeared from the storm itself. "Hey," he whispered, voice rough. Are you okay?" She didn't turn. Her breathing was shallow, and he noticed her fingers were clutched tight around the edge of the blanket. He stepped cautiously forward. "Did you get lost in the storm? Are you hurt?" Still nothing. Then, she turned her head slowly. Her eyes met his. They glowed, soft, luminous. Not human. But not lifeless either. There was emotion in them. Fear, maybe. Or something he couldn't name. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Just a whisper of breath. Jalen swallowed, grabbed a towel from the chair nearby, and knelt beside the bed. He held the towel out toward her with a shaky hand. "You're soaked. Here, take this." She reached slowly, her fingertips brushing his. A jolt. Warmth. Not pain, something more alive than electricity. He stared as she wrapped the towel around herself, her movements slow and uncertain. "I don't want to scare you," he said, more gently this time. "But, who are you?" She blinked. Looked down. Then whispered. "Syra." Just one word. A name. Foreign, delicate, and echoing in the air between them. Jalen repeated it softly. Syra. The cabin suddenly felt smaller. Not in a threatening way, just changed. The storm outside roared louder, but inside, the air between them warmed.
He unfolded a dry blanket and laid it carefully beside her, not getting too close. She didn't move. Just stared at him like he was a puzzle she hadn't decided to trust yet. "It's okay," he said. "You're safe here. I won't hurt you." Silence again. Then, a whisper. 3 words, broken and scared. "No hurt me." Jalen exhaled slowly. "I won't. I promise." She watched him with those glowing eyes, uncertain but listening. He stood and walked to the dresser, pulling out an old t-shirt and sweatpants. Probably way too big. But better than a wet towel. He returned and held them out. "These are clean. You can change, if you want." She looked at the clothes, then at him. Another long pause. Then, she reached out, took them, and nodded. "Thank you," she said quietly. He turned away to give her privacy. The soft sounds of fabric rustling behind him told him she was changing, awkwardly, like it was unfamiliar. Then came her voice again. Syra. Jalen turned around slowly. She stood now, dwarfed in his clothes, her hair hanging in loose silver strands, her glow soft but steady. He nodded, stepping back instinctively. "I'm Jalen." She tilted her head, repeating it back. "Jalen." He smiled. "Nice to meet you. Definitely not how I expected to spend my night." She sat on the edge of the bed again, folding her hands in her lap. There was something about her presence, something that pulled at him. Something ancient and quiet. Jalen sat in the chair across from her, voice low. "Where did you come from?" She turned to the window, where rain streaked down like liquid glass. "Storm," she said. "Storm, broke ship. I fall." Jalen blinked. "Ship?" Syra nodded slowly, then drew a symbol in the air with her finger, 3 crossing lines inside a circle. "Far. Not here." Jalen leaned forward. "You're not just lost." "Run," she said quietly. "Run from choice." Her voice cracked. Her eyes shimmered. "I hide here. You feel warm." Jalen couldn't explain it, but the word struck him. The way she looked at him, like he wasn't just a stranger. Like she had come for him. "You just showed up in my bed," he said, half laughing. "That's never happened before." Syra smiled. Just a flicker. Small, but real. Jalen studied her. Her skin, like liquid metal. Her face, strange and beautiful. Her presence didn't feel like danger, it felt like gravity. "You're safe here," he said again. Firmer this time. She tilted her head. "You not afraid?" He hesitated. "I should be," he admitted. "But I'm not." Outside, thunder cracked. But inside the cabin, something had already shifted. 2 lives. 1 storm. And a meeting neither of them could have predicted. The fire in the small corner hearth popped and hissed as the rain continued to rattle the windows. But the storm somehow felt further away now, less wild, more distant. Jalen sat on the edge of the bed, arms resting loosely on his knees, eyes quietly watching Syra.
She sat beside him, legs tucked under her like a child, her posture rigid at first, but slowly easing. Her silver blue skin shimmered gently in the flickering firelight, and her damp hair was beginning to dry, clinging in soft curves against her cheeks and neck. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Syra reached a hand forward and let it hover above the flames, close but never quite touching. A shimmer of energy danced lightly between her fingers and the fire, like static, but calmer, quieter. She pulled her hand back as though unsure what to do with the sensation. Jalen finally broke the silence. "Does it hurt you?" "The storm, I mean." She looked at him and nodded once. "Storm, hurts mine," she said, fingers brushing the sleeve of the shirt she now wore. "Noise, memory. Makes me feel, too much." Jalen nodded slowly, trying to understand. "You're sensitive to sound? To energy?" She pressed her lips together, searching for the words. "My kind, not built for storm. Built for stillness. Cold, quiet. We hear each other, here." She touched 2 fingers to her temple, then tapped her heart. "Telepathy," Jalen said. "You don't speak with words." Syra nodded again, carefully. Jalen leaned back, letting the information settle. "But you're here now. You left, why?" She shifted, staring down at her hands. Her fingers glowed slightly, just at the edges, as if they were holding on to something invisible and delicate. Not, crash, she said slowly. Run. I run from choosing. Jalen frowned. Choosing what? She paused, and the glow around her dimmed slightly. My world, we do not love. Not like you. We are assigned. Matched. Not by heart, by rule. Jalen's stomach turned. Arranged? She looked away, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes. For balance. For bloodline. For power. Her next words dropped like stones. They chose for me. He is cruel. Strong. Empty. I refused. Jalen's hands curled around the edge of the bed. And they tried to force you anyway? Syra's shoulders trembled, but she nodded. Warned me. Twice. Then. I took small vessel. Signal cloaked. Storm came. I hide. He stared at her, heart thudding. She hadn't fallen here by accident. She hadn't drifted in from the stars by mistake. She had escaped. And you ended up here, he said slowly. In this storm. In my bed. Her eyes lifted, meeting his. I felt you, she said. Jalen blinked. Me? Syra nodded, her voice firmer now. Your signal. Not sound. Feeling. You, hum. You feel, alone. He sat back slowly, stunned. You could feel that? Yes. You're kind, you carry grief like music. It travels. I heard you. Jalen swallowed hard, his breath catching in his throat. He looked at her, not just as something strange and beautiful, but as someone who had sensed his silence. The weight he carried. The ache he buried. You followed that? I wanted to know, she said. Who could feel so strong? Even alone. His throat tightened. You left your whole world, to find me. I did not know face. Or name. Just, feeling. You were quiet. Like me. But warm. He couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. All those nights sitting alone in this cabin, wondering if his silence would ever echo back. And now this glowing stranger who had felt that echo from across stars. She watched him closely, expression unreadable. Are you angry? He shook his head quickly. No. Just, overwhelmed. Syra tilted her head, brushing silver hair behind one ear. You feel, afraid? Not of you, he said. What then? Jalen looked away. That this is a dream. She blinked slowly. It's not. I dream too. But this is not that. Her voice was firmer now, clearer than before. Like she was growing stronger just from being here. They sat in silence for a long while. Finally, she said, why you sleep alone? He looked at her, surprised. Then sighed. I was with someone. Once. Years ago. She said I was too quiet. Too closed off. Said I didn't know how to be, open. Syra's eyes softened. You tried. I did. But I stopped trying after she left. Syra reached out slowly, fingertips brushing his chest again. Right above his heart. You didn't stop feeling, she whispered. You just hid. He closed his eyes briefly, overwhelmed by the truth in her voice. Then she said, I can stay. If you want. His heart thudded again. He looked at her, this fragile, glowing woman who had risked everything to be here. You don't even know me, he said. She shook her head gently. I know what matters. I know your hum. He almost laughed. I didn't know I was humming. You didn't need to, she said. I heard you. For a moment, Jalen couldn't respond. He reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. Syra blinked, eyes shining with something too big for words, and whispered back. "Me neither." They sat together, leaning gently into each other, no need for more words. Outside, the storm began to fade, the thunder losing its edge, the rain slowing to a soft whisper. But inside, something had already changed. Two strangers no longer strangers. Two storms, one in the sky, one in their hearts, finally starting to pass. Dawn had barely crept in. Pale light filtered through the curtains like smoke, diffused by the lingering mist left behind by the night-long storm. Jalen sat quietly at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a warm mug, staring into the swirl of steam. Across from him, Syra stood by the window, her silver hair catching the soft glow of morning. The sleeves of his oversized sweater dangled past her fingers. She hadn't said much since they woke. But she kept looking out at the trees like she was listening for something only she could hear. Finally, she turned. "I need to tell you, real thing," she said. Jalen's grip tightened around the mug. He nodded slowly and set it down. "Okay." Syra walked to the table with slow, uncertain steps and sat down. Her fingers fidgeted in her lap, glowing faintly with tension. "I lied," she said quietly. Jalen tilted his head, confused. "You said your ship crashed. During the storm." She looked up, her eyes steady but sad. "It didn't crash. I broke it." Silence fell between them. Not awkward, but heavy. "I wasn't running from weather," she continued. "I ran from choice. From being taken." Jalen's heart thumped harder. "Taken by who?" "By them. My people. My station. I was marked. Royal." He blinked. "You're royalty. Not like you think. No crown. No celebration. Just duty. I was chosen, to join, to breed, to continue line." She swallowed, and her hands trembled. "I refused. Once. Twice. Then they stopped asking." Jalen's mouth went dry. "What happens when you refuse?" Her voice dropped. "They decide for you. They take the voice from your head, the warmth from your body. They program obedience. It's called joining. It is not love. It is function." Jalen leaned forward slowly. "So you ran?" She nodded. "Took a vessel. Disconnected my signal. Cloaked myself. Hid in storm. That's how I found you." He frowned. "But why here? Why me?" Syra hesitated, then reached across the table and placed her palm flat on the wood between them. "I heard you," she whispered. Not voice. Not words. A pulse. Like music. Loneliness. But not hollow. Full. Deep. Jalen didn't move. He stared at her hand, then back into her glowing eyes. "I didn't know I was sending anything," he said. "You didn't mean to," she replied, "but I felt it. From far away. Like a heartbeat in darkness. You were not calling. But still, you called." He drew a breath, steadying the sudden ache in his chest. "You crossed galaxies, for that?" "I did not want to be chosen," she said. "I wanted to choose." Jalen stared at her, stunned. Her glow deepened slightly, coloring her cheeks and neck with a faint flush. "I didn't know name. Or place. Just, feeling. But when I found this cabin, when I saw you, it hummed stronger. Your silence was not cold. It was, familiar." He leaned back, overwhelmed. "I thought I'd buried it," he said. "That pain. That loneliness. You wrapped it in quiet, she said gently. But it still echoed. Syra reached for his hand again, slow, careful, and this time he didn't pull away. Their fingers touched. You're kind, you carry emotion like energy. You mourn out loud and in silence. You make pain into stories. You don't bury it. You sing it. Jalen let out a shaky laugh. That sounds more poetic than it feels. Syra smiled softly. Still. I followed it. Not to save. Just to see. He looked at her, his voice low. And now that you've seen. I want to stay, she said. Not to hide. But to be. She looked down, then back up. But I can't stay if you don't want me. Jalen stared at her. You think I don't want you here, he said. After all that. Her expression wavered, the flicker of doubt still lingering in her glow. He stood, walked around the table, and knelt beside her chair. Carefully, he placed his hand over hers. Her fingers were warm, her pulse gentle. I thought I was okay with being alone, he said quietly. But since you came, it's like I remembered what warmth feels like. Syra blinked, lips parting. I don't know how to be with someone like you, he added. You're glowing, and I'm just a guy with tea and too many books. She smiled, a real one, and gently touched his face. I don't need you to be more, she said. I just need you to be. Their eyes met again, and this time, neither looked away. I won't pretend I know what comes next, Jalen whispered. But I know I don't want to go back to silence. Then let's choose together, she said. He nodded once. Outside, a beam of sunlight cracked through the clouds, warming the wet earth. Birds stirred in the trees, cautious, unsure if the storm had truly passed. But inside the cabin, there was no doubt anymore. This was no accident. No coincidence. No crash. It was a meeting. A choice. Not to escape something. But to begin something. The air was clearer now. Still heavy with the scent of wet earth and pine, but the storm had long passed. Days melted together like warm wax. Morning light pooled across the wooden floors, and wind moved through the trees like breath. Peace had settled in. Jalen didn't know how to define what he and Syra had become. They didn't talk about it often, and yet, everything said more than words could. She moved through the cabin like she'd always belonged, quiet, curious, glowing only when she laughed or touched something new. He had learned to expect the soft thrum of her presence, the light hum she made while boiling tea, the way her fingers brushed across the wood grain of the table like it held secrets. She asked questions constantly. What's pepper? Why does smoke sting eyes? Why do people cry during music? Jalen answered the best he could. Sometimes with facts. More often with stories. And she listened like stories were sacred. She wore human clothes now, always too big. Sweaters that swallowed her arms. Pants tied tight at the waist with string. Nothing fit, but she made everything look natural. And Jalen, he found himself smiling more, saying less, but feeling more than ever. One morning, Syra stood barefoot in a tiny garden patch they'd planted behind the cabin. She knelt beside something strange, an unfamiliar plant that shimmered faintly with violet and blue. Its petals seemed to breathe, flexing gently in the still air. What is that? Jalen asked, stepping beside her. Memory flower, she said, touching the soft glowing leaves. Grows from my side. From my mother's line. Only near strong feeling. Love, he asked. Syra nodded. Not spoken. Just known. Jalen squatted beside her, holding a small tin cup and gently watering the soil. I didn't believe you when you said it would grow. I did, she said simply. Behind him, he felt her move, arms sliding around his waist, her cheek resting against his back. The cup trembled in his hand. You always sneak up on me like that. Syra laughed softly. You feel warm. I like warm. He smiled, setting the cup down and covering her hands with his own. I don't think I'll ever get used to a glowing plant blooming just because you hugged me. It glows because you carry everything, she murmured. Even when you try not to. He turned to face her, brushing her hair gently from her cheek. Storm brought you here, remember? She leaned into his touch. No. Love did. Those words settled into him like sunlight into soil. He kissed her forehead, slow, steady, and they stood like that for a while, surrounded by silence that no longer felt empty. But peace never lasts untouched. That evening, while Jalen was chopping wood outside, Syra stepped onto the porch, her face still, her glow dimmer than usual. I feel them, she said. Jalen turned. Who? Scanners. Not close. But closer than before. Not Earth yet, but looking. Tuning. He dropped the axe, throat tight. They're coming. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe weeks. But they are searching. Panic rose in his chest. What happens if they find you? Her eyes met his. They will take me back. I will be claimed. Reconnected. My thoughts not mine. I do not get to run twice. He stepped closer, gripping her shoulders gently. Then we run. Or hide. We'll figure it out. Syra's voice was steady but sad. I do not want to run again. I want to stay because I am chosen. Not, assigned. You are chosen, Jalen said. By me. I want you here. She blinked slowly, emotion welling in her luminous eyes. Then tell me. Clearly. Or I leave. Not for fear. For truth. Jalen stepped back, heart thudding. Then, slowly, Syra walked to the front door and opened it. Cold air swept in. Her hair blew softly in the breeze. She stood there a long time, staring into the dark trees. Say word, she whispered. I stay. Jalen walked toward her, his boots creaking on the old floorboards, and stopped just behind her. He reached out, fingers brushing hers. You already made this place home, he said. She turned, eyes wide, and a single glowing tear slid down her cheek. You mean it? He nodded. I don't care who comes. Or what happens. If you want to stay, stay. Not to save me, but because you want to. Her lips trembled. I stay because of you. He pulled her into his arms, slow and sure. And she folded into him without hesitation. Behind them, the cabin stood warm and lit. Ahead of them, the sun began to pierce the clouds again. They stepped back inside and closed the door. Not in fear, but in choice. Weeks passed after that moment, but the fear never returned. Not fully. They didn't know if her people had stopped searching. Maybe they had. Maybe they hadn't. But neither Jalen nor Syra lived with that tension anymore. They had chosen each other, and something about that choice was stronger than fear. Their life became quiet, simple. They cooked together. Dug soil and planted herbs. Syra learned how to read slowly, stumbling over every word, but laughing every time she got one right. Jalen never rushed her. The memory flower outside bloomed higher, brighter, like it, too, had decided to stay. Sometimes, she would hum without realizing it, and the cabin would feel like it was breathing. Sometimes he would sit and just watch her, hands wrapped around tea, hair glowing faintly, eyes tracing the horizon. Each night, she would lie beside him, hand on his chest, fingers syncing with his heartbeat. Anchor, she would whisper. And he'd reply, light. They didn't need more than that. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary thing in a world of noise and fear is finding one quiet voice that says, "You are not alone." And neither of them would ever be again. The storm had passed. But what it left behind was love, glowing, real, and chosen. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, give it a like, share it with someone who needs a little warmth, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one.